Okay, so this is the starting point for astrophotography. What you can do with your mobile phone. So everyone can have a go at this if they like. As soon as it gets dark, obviously. So what you need to do is go into your settings on your mobile phone, and you need to set it to night mode. Set the ISO as high as possible. I think they probably go to 1600, maybe 3200, something like that. So set it there. And set the shutter speed to the maximum. About 30 seconds is what you normally get, and the f number as low as possible. I think on my phone it went to 0.55, which all works well. And most important of all is set the timer to 5 seconds, so you've got enough time to set the phone. So obviously it's not moving, because if it's moving around it's just not going to work. So the best way is to go out somewhere dark in the car, put the phone on the car roof and just going straight up, so you've got your best chance of capturing some stars, and do it that way. What I've got here, just going to pop up in a second, is the first astro photo I took, which was April last year, just from the back garden. Just had a go, and that was okay. I couldn't use the full 30 seconds because it was beginning to fade out with too much light, because of where we are with light pollution. But the second photo is from up at the dark site in Thornton Woods just recently, and that was a 30-second exposure at 1600 ISO. So that was all maximum, all maxed out as far as you can go, and that worked quite well. But obviously what you can do with a mobile phone is a bit limited, because the lens is very small and you're limited in your exposure time. But it does give you an impression of the things to come. Okay, so this is the next step after trying to take a photo with a mobile phone. This is just a stock Canon DSLR D1000 camera. I mean, most people have these sort of cameras in their own homes, and you can use them to take astro photos quite easily. The key is to set them on the bulb setting, or a 15-second exposure at, say, ISO 800, and then just blast away and take some photos. The key is that the camera obviously is not moving, because it's very important if you want pictures that are not blurry, that the camera is completely stationary. So obviously I've got a tripod here, which is holding the camera, and I can just blast away because I've got a cable release, so I can just basically take photos like that without moving the camera, which is very important, because obviously if the camera's moving around, it's just blurry and doesn't work. But you don't have to have a tripod. You could just have it resting somewhere on a book or whatever, and obviously you want to try and get the angle right. Depends on what exactly you're trying to shoot. And then you set the exposure at 15 seconds, and then I think most modern cameras you can have, there's a timer function, so you can hit the button just there, and then it waits a couple of seconds or 10 seconds, takes the exposure, and then you can do another one. So it is possible to use these type of cameras to do astrophotography, but you're a little bit limited in the exposure length you can do. So it is the next step, but it hasn't really moved you far on from doing a mobile phone picture. So from here we go to the next step, which is obviously a much more advanced setup, which we'll see next. Right, so this is the next step. So we've got the camera and the telescope here. So we've got a 61mm lens in there. And this camera is the same camera we just saw before, so Canon DSLR. Only difference being this one has had the infrared filter removed, so all the light that comes through the lens ends up on the sensor. The stock DSLR has this infrared filter which blocks some of the red light, which is very important for astrophotography. So this one is an astro modded one, as it's called. On the top we've got a guide scope, which acts with the tracker to maintain high accuracy. Without the guide scope,
the tracker will track accurately for about 60 seconds, which is fine. But if you want to take really sharp pictures, you need the guide scope. But I'll come back to that a little bit later. Now, how it actually works, you can see there's a rotation axis here. So the point is, this axis is parallel to the Earth's axis. So the Earth is rotating one way and the tracker rotates the other, and maintains the image of what you're trying to photograph right in the middle of the sensor. And more importantly, it isn't moving, so you get a nice sharp image, because that's the problem with all kinds of photography. You've probably seen yourself, you get a blurry image if the camera is moving about. So if you're trying to photograph something and it's moving, you get a blurry image. So that obviously has got to be avoided. So the next step is to wait for it to get dark, and we can take some photos. But while we're waiting, we'll have a little look at one of the biggest problems, which is light pollution, which will come right now.
Okay, so what have we got here? This is a satellite photo of basically the north of England and a little bit of Scotland up here, showing what the light pollution situation is. You can see this is where we live here. This is Newcastle here. There's Carlisle over here. And interestingly, you can see that's the M74 headed up into Scotland. This is the M6 heading down from the lakes down towards Lancashire down there. You can see a bit of the A1 over here, because that's lit at night. So this is all pretty terrible if you want to take astro photos. But good news is you don't have to go very far out into Northumberland and you're into some really dark skies. I'll just move this up a bit. So this is Kielder over here. This is this dark sky park, which is very, very dark, and you can see the reason. Look at that over there, and over here it's completely free of pollution, which is fantastic. So the place I know I'm in Kielder is about an hour out for me, so I tend to go up the A1 and then up the Coldstream Road. Coldstream sort of up here, and there's a forest up here which is pretty dark. So there is a way around it. It isn't far. It's about half an hour, and you can get away from all of this light pollution, which does make the job of picking out these very faint objects a lot easier. So light pollution is a big problem, and what we've got here is possible solution or partial solution for some of the objects that are in the sky. And what we can see is the wavelength of light here. Now these lines here are the wavelengths of the light pollution, basically. So this is an example of a filter which only permits light here and here to pass through into the lens, into the sensor. So in the insert there's a picture of the California Nebula, which obviously you can see is the red color, because it's mainly made out of hydrogen, and this H alpha here is this red line here. So the filter's only allowing that light to come through. All of the rubbish that you don't want from the street lights is eliminated, and you get a really good picture without having to go to the dark side. Now you still need to go to the dark side for pictures of galaxies and what have you, the broad spectrum objects. So the filter option doesn't work for that, but for a lot of types of things you're trying to photograph, this is a solution. So even city sites like where I am now, which isn't too bad, semi-urban site, but still a lot of light pollution, you can take some photos of these types of objects quite successfully. But the best place to go is out into the darkness in the national park, which we'll come on to shortly. Okay, this is the Stellarium software, which helps. Well, it does the pointing of the telescope at the object you want, which is very handy. So there's very little that you need to do except locate the object you want, which is Orion. So we're going to click on there, and So there, the telescope is currently pointed here. Williams Optics 61 is pointed at the pole star. So all you have to do is click on the object you want and go Control 1. I'm going to unpark it, and away we go. So you can see the telescope is moving through the sky, and it's going to end up down here, and we can start our photographs. There we go. Okay, in fact we're just slightly off. We want to be just there, so we'll just tidy that up a bit, just move it a little bit. Perfect. So now we can go on to the next stage, which is setting up the guide scope. Right, here we have the PhD2 guiding program. So down here we can see, I'll just get it out of the way, we can see the output of the guide camera, and what it's locked on is one star here, which is being monitored, and up here in this area here you can see the pulses that are going to the mount to move it back and forward, to keep it bang on the crosshairs. Just for a bit of information, these little ups and downs here, each block is 1 arc second, which is roughly equivalent to the size of a 5-pence piece at 2 kilometers. So you can see from that it's keeping a pretty good job of it, and this helps the accuracy of the photography, and it makes for better, sharper images. So pretty successful. Right, so here we have the image capture software, Backyard EOS. So what we're doing here is basically setting up our exposure here. ISO, I've got 1600, and the duration, this could be anything from, I'm just going to put 30 seconds here in just as a test, just to show you how it works. And there's quite a lot of stuff in here. I mean, there's the temperature of the sensor there. Just get that out of the way. So probably the best way to get some feel for it is just to run a picture. So there we are. So all this is computer control, so I don't have to go outside to the telescope and camera. It's all run from inside, and as you can see, it's just taking a 30-second exposure, and it's going to save it all down to the laptop. So nice and easy. So this is just a test. I mean, in practice what you normally be doing is taking, say, 20 3-minute exposures, and then moving on to the next step, which is stacking them all together. So what can we see here? That's the Orion Nebula. So it's just taking a 30-second exposure of that, which is not bad for 30 seconds. There you go. So what happens next is the accumulation phase, which is another bit of software which we're going to see in just a second. Right, this is the Sequator program. It's currently running. So what it's doing is taking 41 images that we've recorded using the camera, and it's going to accumulate them all, which is a process whereby, because all of these images are just sensor ones and zeros, and it's going to add them together, but it's going to do something slightly more subtle than that, because each frame is slightly out of sync by design. So all the damaged pixels that occur on the sensor will be eliminated, because when it adds them together, one hot pixel will match up with some dark space on the next picture, and be eliminated, so you get a much cleaner image. So when it comes to the final job, which is nearly done, we'll see what it's done. And there we go. So you can see that it's brought out a lot of detail here, and all we're going to do now is do a bit of post-processing in Photoshop. Okay, we're in Photoshop now. So this is the image that we got from the Sequator program, which has accumulated those 41 frames. Now in this case, it's not a bad image, so there's not a huge amount to do. So all it is really is just really tidying the background up and maybe drawing a little bit more detail out of the picture. So won't go into really great detail, because it takes 10-15 minutes maybe, just a bit of tinkering here and there. So what I'm going to do is just show that's the image that we've got, and we're gonna have a quick look at the final image. So this is the final image. As you can see, the background's been tidied up and there's a little bit more detail there. A lot of it depends on where you take a photo. If you take one out in the sticks where it's nice and dark, there's less to do. But pictures taken in more urban environments, there's obviously a bit more tidying up to do and get gradients in the frame from the light pollution. But that's not a bad image, so we can move on to the next stage now, which is just a gallery of some of the photos I've taken. This is the Horsehead Nebula and the Flame Nebula in Orion, first discovered by William Herschel in 1786. This is the Triangulum galaxy, the most distant object you can see with your own eyes. The distance is 2.73 million light years. This is the Orion Nebula, visible from even light polluted skies in the city, one of the brightest objects of its type, about 1300 light years away. This is a Rosetta Nebula, one of the largest of its type in our galaxy. Even though it's 5,000 light years away, it still appears to be twice the size of the full moon.